Donna from Evoker, and welcome to the next video in our character creation set. Okay, so we'll start where we left off before, so opening up the lower leg file. I'll go and delete the turbo smooth, and I'll also delete these top edges now. Okay, I'm going to add a symmetry now so I can see how the legs are looking together. To do that, I'll need to change my pivot point, so I'll go to the hierarchy tab, go effect pivot only, and I'll zero out the X, Y, and Z in the transform section down the bottom here just by right clicking on each of the arrows, then hitting effect only again to apply that. I'll then reset my X form so I can start from a clean mesh and hit collapse all to start. Okay, I'll then apply my symmetry by, you can either go to the modifier pull down and find symmetry in there, or since I've set up my modifier set buttons, I'll just hit symmetry here. Okay, so now that I've applied the symmetry, you can see that it's disappeared. Now I just need to hit the flip button to bring them back. If you apply symmetry and it's looking a bit odd like this, or like, you know, it's pointing in the wrong direction, so you can see where it's going to mirror with the arrows here. You can turn off flip, you can see that it's mirrored on the Z axis. It's obviously not what we want. If it mirrors on the Y, it tries to go back to front, so you've got the arrows to show where it's mirroring. So now, since we know that the x-axis is correct, since the arrows are pointing in the direction we want to mirror, we know that we just need to check the little flip button to turn it on so we can see what we're doing. And yeah, they start to look pretty good. We've got two legs and they fit with the silhouette of our character, so that's great. We can turn turbo smooth back on as well to see what it looks like with the turbo smooth on and see where the shadows and the highlights are falling. Okay, now remember, do not apply or collapse your turbo smooth onto your model. It's just there for reference. We will eventually delete the turbo smooth, but for now we'll leave it on. And we'll move on to modeling our character. So we'll grab the edges on the top of our character here. So just where we left off before, and we're just going to use, in the front view, shift and drag to extrude the edge. Okay. So just about there. We'll do this 1, about there, 2, 3, 4, and then at the base of the ribcage, so 5. And now we'll start to tweak these to make them more follow the image planes more. So just bringing in these so we can see where our silhouette lies underneath on our image plane, and to make it look a little less like a cylinder. So this will have to come down, I think, about there. This one about, and that one we want at the base of the top of the rib cage, sorry. So this one will come down a bit more. So just trying to even out our extrusions as well. Okay, so just working in the front mode again, the viewport, and we'll just continue to tweak the vertices to get the shape that we want of our character underneath. Just bring this up. So this would be where the hip is. She doesn't have a very pronounced hip, so we'll just try and keep it subtle. Just round off the leg a little bit more here as well. Okay. So just keeping the nice belly shape as well around her abdomen. Just moving on up the body. So remember, we always want these vertices in the center of the body to remain on 0 in the X. This will help us when we go to weld them with the other side of the body. And it helps for symmetry as well. So just the top of the belly as it comes into the navel, or the belly button. So again, just constantly looking at my reference image to make sure that I've got everything in around the right position. So the belly button will be about here, the navel, the top of the rib cage, so all the muscles that will lie underneath are just there as well. So we're just keeping an eye on the shape as well as other images, reference material. I've got a Google page open of just artistic reference, so I can see where the light and the shadow would fall. So just, you know, Google images for female anatomy, and you'll be able to find a good set of references for the female body. It's also good to have a look at professional photography work, because you can see where light and shadow is being used by the photographer to create certain effects. So you can see how the shadow and the light falls on the body, and these are all things that help us in our modeling, so we can better show form and surface curves and things like that, just by paying attention to the shadows and where the highlights will fall. So just going in and continuing to tweak these areas. So we want to bring this up and start to form the actual rib cage. So we'll bring this down a little bit. Start to follow the edge of the rib cage itself. I'm going to bring these down a little bit. I'll select all of these as well. So just in the front still, so the back will look quite messy. paying attention, I guess, still to my reference. So I always have it open on the side so I can see where the muscles fall. See, the belly button's actually here between these muscle groups, and it's formed by like the furrow here, or exaggerated I guess by the furrow, since it's actually formed by the umbilical cord, or the knot that is actually tied in the end after the umbilical cord is removed. But we can see where the muscles form and how everything will fall into place around now. So a lot of it is practice and observation, making sure that we pay attention during the day, whenever we're online, we can have a look and we can start saying, oh, I can see where the muscle structure is underneath whatever we're looking at. Or start to pay attention to people's faces, and you can see the different shapes that are created by their nose or their ears or the edge of their chin. And you can start using things that you observe in real life in your art as well. And we'll just continue to tweak. Until we're happy. I think it's almost there. Okay, so just, continuing to tweak. Move these down so they don't obscure the shape. Okay, so that'll do for the front for now. We'll move on to the side of our character again, and we'll start adjusting from the side viewport. So we'll make sure to grab these center ones here, just to bring them forward so I know where they are. There we go. And moving back into the side so we can start modifying these vertexes here. So bring it in for where the belly button would be, and then rounding off and making sure that we fit with the silhouette of our character. So going down, just tweaking the areas that we may have already been through, making sure everything that is sitting nicely. Okay, so that's the front of the pelvis there. Very high hipped. bring the back in so we can see what's going on and how the shape is forming. So yeah, just bringing everything in. So we can see the silhouette of the character underneath. And we know the shape that we're supposed to be working to. Okay. And then just continuing to tweak along. Just pushing and pulling vertices around. And making sure everything follows form. Just keeping an eye on my reference as I work again, just to make sure everything is sitting where it should. So this would be where the rib cage. We can see where the rib cage is under here. Just scrolling out every now and then to make sure everything looks good from a distance again. Okay. Going through the perspective to see which vertex I have there. Alright, bring that out. So this would be where the lower back muscles go into the back of the pelvis. Okay, we'll just have a look with the symmetry and the turbo smooth on. Hide the edges by hitting F4, and then yeah, just having a look around and seeing how things are looking, and it's starting to come up quite nicely. We can start to see where the belly is, where the hip is, where the rib cage starts to fall, where the abdomen comes in, and where the muscles start to go into the pelvis at the back of the back muscles. So yeah, just coming along nicely. We can continue on. Just bringing the edges back again by hitting F4. We'll move to the back of our character and start to adjust some of these edges here. Start leveling these off a little bit. So we may have to go back into the side view and adjust these again. So this one goes into the hip. So just spacing these out a little bit more. and we haven't saved for a while, so we'll go File, Save As, and we'll call this one Mid and hit Save. Now hopefully you've got your in customized preferences, you have your increment on save and your auto backup enabled, so that whenever you hit Control S, you can see that it increments, so it goes up to 0, 1. So if we do make a mistake, we can go back to the previous save file, and if Max crashes, we can always try the auto back as well as a safety net, because things happen. We can't always predict what will happen. If there's a blackout, or if power goes out for some reason, or Max can crash. It's always good to know that where there is the auto back that will save automatically every, I think it was 5 minutes that it's set up to do. And we also have our save incrementals, so we can go back to a previous file if we've accidentally collapsed our turbo smooth onto our model, or we've done something that just can't be undone. Okay, I think that's starting to look pretty good from the back as well. So we'll move back into perspective and have a look around. Yep, that's coming along nicely. Just make sure that the changes we made on the back haven't moved everything too far out from our silhouette. Bring this in just a little bit. Okay. Yep, it's looking good. Scrolling out and having a look. Yep, she looks like legs. Excellent. Okay, and we'll continue on up the model. Before we do that, we might just add some geometry to the inside of our leg. Yeah, I think we will. So there's that bean shape I was talking about for the upper body. We'll add, yep, we'll definitely add. So we'll grab the polygon, we'll go cut, and we'll go from this vertex. So you can tell you're on the vertex when it changes to the small square with a small crosshair. We'll click on there, and we will just add these edges for now. Now, obviously that ends in an n-gong, and we don't want n-gongs in our finished geometry. For now, we'll leave it there and come back, and once I've finished doing everything else, because I may add more geometry down here, I don't know yet, and which will get rid of the n-gong. But for now, I'll leave it. If you're worried that you'll forget to come back to it, by all means, create 2 edges from here to here, just by selecting the vertex and going connect. Where's connect? There we go. For both of those, to create a triangle. just like we did on the base of the foot. But I'm just going to leave it as an end gong for now, and when I come back to it and fix it later, in case I do add more geometry. Okay, so I want to make sure that's actually welded, so I'll pick a high number and check. Yep, says before and after is the same number, so that's fine. So cool. There is only one vertex there, which is great. And then we'll just move these into maybe around the center of this line and that line. Rounding off the edge loop as well, and bringing this down ever so slightly. So if I go into the front, yep, might be easy to see from the back. There we go. And round off the shape. Okay. And we'll also add one on the other side of the leg as well. So we'll just grab these edges and hit connect. So that there's more geometry on the inside of the leg. And we can round out this area a little bit more. Yep. Okay. Again, if you don't want to don't leave the end gong there. Actually, we'll do that. Let's cut in these. We'll just use the vertex connect so that we don't forget. We don't leave the end gong exposed. So we'll just modify these here by selecting the vertices, the vertices, and hitting connect. So we don't want any end gongs in our polygon, in our model. They wreak havoc. And then just modifying the shape a little bit to adjust for the new polygons. just smoothing out the edge of this edge loop a bit, and just working through and tweaking some of the edges, constantly referring to reference. Okay, you can always check what that looks like. Gonna round out this area a little bit. So just evening out the spaces between our edges. So of course we want to keep our mesh to polygons as often as we can, so 4-sided polygons as much as we can, but sometimes it will be necessary to use triangles, and as long as we don't use these in edges in places that will deform a lot, so above the knee and in places that can be hidden, like the inside of the leg, we can usually get away with using them, so when they cause weird shadowing or pinching or what have you, it's not seen as much, if at all. Okay, while we're here, we may as well fix up this this harsh edge here, this triangle that defines the fold line. It's quite harsh and a bit not really what we're looking for. So what we'll do is we will, let's see, we'll start by removing this edge, and we will cut from here to here. And around there. Okay, so just leave that there for now. Okay, so we'll leave that edge there to make sure that it follows that that line, but we can now see that we've got a better polygon here, so it'll be easier for us to get the curve, the crease when we skin it. So just adjusting these vertices underneath now to compensate for the new edge. Now I know this one ends in a poly as well, an engong as well. So what we'll do is we'll actually join this one for now up into that newly created edge that we did just before. We'll make sure this is welded correctly, and then we'll just continue to tweak. Okay, so I'm pretty happy, I think, with how this is coming along. Make sure we match our silhouette when we go back into front and side. So creating that new edge along here helps give us extra polygons too for geometry for our skinning purposes. So just some minor tweaks now. To solidify the overall form. Okay. Yep. Okay, what we can do now is we can round off the buttock, the bottom, by adding geometry down the center here. We can do that by grabbing these edges just like that. We'll go up into, see from the back. Yep, so from there, so we'll grab those edges there and hit connect. I'll then go into vertex mode, and I will grab these two vertices and we will connect them as well. Oh, there it is, connect. And we'll do the same for these ones. Just selecting the two and connecting them. Okay. Then going into our side view, we can start to pull them out to round off the back side. Just a little bit more. Okay, so grab them in the perspective just so I can see. Go into our back and we'll just adjust these ones a little bit more so that they, there we go, that's a bit better. Just putting a bit of curve into the back side. And we'll go into, it's probably easier in perspective. Pull these in a bit. And this one out. To round off where our backside would be, or is. Okay, so just hit the wrong key there. That was Alt Z, or get rid of your manipulator tool, but you can just hit W to come back. It actually goes into zoom mode, I beg your pardon. So you can change to the zoom handle. And then we'll go back. Just bringing these in. Just to round off the bottom. And go back into perspective mode so we can see perspective view, just so we can see what we look like in the 3D space. Yep, it's starting to come along. You're not quite sure. You can always turn on your turbo smooth and your symmetry to see how everything's coming together. You can kind of start to see the rounding of the backside, and even the beginning of the fold underneath the gluteus maximus there, which is the buttock cheek. So just continuing to tweak and round off our leg, sorry, and following the muscle structures. That's what I was trying to say. So I'll just go back into just look at the leg, and we'll see. Alright, I'll leave that for now. I will add another edge loop here just to smooth off the back side. I will do that by selecting these edges here. Yep, those edges, and hitting connect. Again, we don't want to leave an end gong, so we'll connect this one up here just to keep following that curve of the body, and we will select this one here. Yep, okay. And then we'll adjust that so we can round off the bottom. What we can also do is we'll start to add another edge to define the fold that's underneath the bottom, where the gluteus maximus connects with the leg. We get that nice crease that's underneath the backside, so we can add that now. We'll go around. Grab polygon And we'll go from this here, this edge there, and we will cut in where the edge crease would be. Fold, sorry, of the glue. Now we can go in and we can see we've created a polygon between these two here, so we can go in and grab this edge and we will remove it. And then we'll fix and create a nice crease for our backside. So just adjusting in the back and the front and the side to get the shape that we want. And evening out some of the edges as well. Round out our bottom shape. I don't want to give her a saggy backside, so just rounding it off slightly. And adjusting the edges in general. I'm not quite happy with that triangle. I might come back and have a look at that, see if I can't fix it. But I'll just keep tweaking for now. Might weld that edge in there as well, so just looking at the overall shape to begin with and rounding off the new edges that we created. Just to give more shape to our to our leg and thigh area. So just tweaking and keeping an eye on our reference, making sure everything falls where it should and the silhouette is still looking nice. Paying attention to where the shadows are falling and where the highlights are. And I'm just going to save now too, so Control S. And then continue on by just tweaking and making sure that these are all nice and curvy through here. So this is the new edge that we created. Be good to go into perspective mode now and just have a look at the overall shape and see how we're going. Go into the front mode, front viewport, and maybe just bring these in just a little, ever so slightly to round off this leg, so we can bring this in a little bit and pull this edge out a little bit as well. So just pushing and pulling until we can get something that looks good and still matches our silhouette. And obviously the underlying muscle structure. So we can put in, now too would be a good time to turn on our turbo smooth, so we can see how that crease is forming, and we can see that's just looking a little bit flat. We don't want that. We want a nice round shape, so we can bring that up. So just rounding off the shape as we have a look and see how things are moving. Sometimes we can get the shape we want better when we can see the turbo smooth model, and I am not liking this triangle here, so I'll get rid of that. It's coming around too much onto the side of the leg. Just lift this a little bit, maybe bring that in slightly. Okay, from here we can see we've got a bit of a lumpy shape here, which is highly unpleasant. So we'll try and smooth that out. There we go. Lift the backside a little bit. and smooth off the shape. So we'll have a bit of a lump. Why do we have a bit of a lump? So we can keep smoothing things and moving things around until, there we go. We can get rid of the weird lumpy shape. There we go. Round out the back side a bit more. Pull this in to form the crease. And round off the under shape as well. The under. Okay, so that's kind of getting there. I'm still not quite happy with what's happening here on the side. So I might come in here and see if we can smooth this out a little bit. So just evening out edges at the moment, because this was beginning to frustrate me a little bit, so I'm just moving on to a new section until I can figure out how I'm going to make this do what I want. Sometimes I find that it tends to fix itself if I just kind of step back and smooth out edge loops and make sure everything is nice and neat. Then I can go back in and tackle what I was trying to do before. So I wasn't quite liking how the shadow was falling underneath the backside. It was giving a little bit too much of a flat shape and pinching up the side here, so I might have to have a look and see how we can fix this area here. I'm also not happy with this triangle. It's doing an odd thing, so I'm going to try and see if I can fix this by we'll remove this edge and we'll go to the polygon and I'm going to put the cut, and I will cut from here to here, so that creates a very tiny triangle, but we don't want that, so we're going to grab from there to there. So that should quad our edges, so we'll have quads instead of triangles, and we'll see if we can fix the odd pinchy shadow that was happening. And we'll make sure that's welded. Should also fix, there we go, maybe a bit. Have a look again from the front. And I'll bring these in ever so slightly. And just trying to find out where there is that edge. That's what I'm looking for. So you can just see the gluteus muscle coming through. It also defines the inner leg muscle that's here and the tendon. Just continuing to refine the shape. Alright, so I'll turn this back on. That looks a little better. There we go. Still not quite sure about moving the wrong vertex. There we go. Just undo that so I can looks better. See if we can't just tweak this a little bit more to fix the shadow shape a little bit better. Make it a little bit more curvy. Okay, I think I'm becoming happy with this shape. So I'll just go back in, make sure that we match our silhouette. Just pulling that in back a little bit. Okay. Okay, I think that's pretty good for the back side for now. Yep. Alright, so we'll move on to finishing extruding the top part of our body. Just do one more check to see where the highlights are falling. Make sure everything is starting to look pretty good. I might soften this a little bit just by pulling out the vertices just a little bit more to there we go, I think. So, yep, got the muscles coming into the back there. We can see where the top of the hip is as we move around. And they're a little bit too flat on the sides, I think, so we'll just round these out a little bit more. Just ever so slightly. Okay. Yep. I might just look side again a little bit more. I'm just not really happy with how this is kind of working, so we might bring these ones forward a bit, even this out. So just where the top of the hip would be, I can bring this back. just to show the definition between the hip and the belly a bit more. So I'm just, adjusting the vertices so I can define where the hip is, and the definition, the transition between the hip bone and the belly. So if I go back into the front, and I'll just adjust these a little bit so we can get that's a bit better. And then just adjusting the shapes again from the front to follow the underlying muscle. And taking into account obviously the fat tissue that is there. Okay, I think that looks a little bit better. So if we move into perspective, and throw on, there we go, we can start to see now the definition between the belly and the hip, so we can get that nice rolling curve in the shadow. That's better. See where the dip of the belly button will lie, and the abdominal muscles. Okay, now we can continue our extrusion. So we'll grab our edge tool. We'll turn off this and we'll grab the edges just by double clicking to grab the edge loop and move to the front. And we'll extrude 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So we'll start at the side, and this one's going to follow the base of our rib cage. So just making this follow the curve of our rib cage up into the back. Again, looking at reference, either zygote body or another anatomy reference, just to show where the rib cage would lie. Just getting the basic curve down. Okay, so this line here, this edge loop will sit just around the base of the breast. So just at the, almost around the fold line or just above it. And again, this curve will follow the curve of the rib cage. This edge loop will follow the curve of the rib cage. Just pulling that one in there to start the back furrow, so where the spine would sit. Moving on up. Now this one, we're not going to pull this out to form the shape of the breast. We're going to do that later. This is actually just going to follow the rib cage. So imagine an invisible line that comes down from where the collarbone is, down and around to the rib cage. So we're going to follow that. Move these up out of the way just a little bit so I can start to get this shape. This one will sit at the back here, it will sit at the base of where the shoulder blade would be. So the shoulder blade would be about here. And just about there. So we're going to follow that around. Again, this curves in. We're not following the shape of the breast, we're following the shape of the rib cage. You need to get this shape right because the breast actually sits on top of the rib cage. They're not spheres, they're not balloons, they're not some sort of muscle that sits, that's part of the chest. They don't just sit on like they've been slapped on there. They're part of the chest, they sit on them, they form around the chest. So we're going to bring this in and we're going to build the chest, and then we'll build the breast on top of it. So just that breastbone underneath, a big part of the chest edge loop that falls underneath the breastbone there, which is the chest. So bring out the shoulder blade just slightly and have a look at the overall. So it's going to look a bit odd, obviously, because we don't have the chest on there yet, but we can get the idea of how things are going to look. And we'll just continue to tweak the shape. So just following the underlying structure, muscle and bone. The chest is curved, so we want to make sure that there's a curve built into the chest. And the rib cage. And then making sure our back is correct as well. So it's following the silhouette and our muscle reference. So I'm just going to quickly save it now. So hitting my Control S on the keyboard so that it increases my save and saves a new file. You can always go back through later once you've finished your model and delete the ones that you don't need. But it's always best to, keep iterations of your work, so you can always go back. I'm going to switch to the front view here so I can see how things are going, and we're going to put, these ones are going to follow the collarbone. So just like that. So constantly reevaluating what I've done before and making sure it all fits with the new edge loops. And making sure all this is falling correctly. So again, just following the chest and not the shape of the breast. Falls under the armpit there. There we go. Okay, so that's starting to look good and shape up nicely. So just following, this is just following the angle of the collarbone. That's the base of the armpit there. We might add another edge loop through there. Just rounding out the chest. I'm going to move to the side again and just to make sure everything is going well. So the rib cage is actually on an angle. So if we have a look at the reference, just bring there and go to the bones. If we look at the rib cage, we can see that it's really not, she's standing up incredibly straight, but our character is leaning back slightly, so there is an angle. You can see it slightly on the rib cage here, just a slight angle down through the bones. But yeah, so just keeping that in mind as we build. So our character is standing with her chest out. So she's standing rather straight, chest out. So we just want to show that in the form of the rib cage. Also making sure that we follow the muscles of the back when we do this, so that we can show that her form is functional. It's not just a fake. So just round this off a little bit more. It looks like it's a bit too straight through there. Okay, and we'll go to our back. And again, we'll bring these out and round off the shape of our back of the rib cage. Moving into perspective, I'm having a look around again. So I'll grab these two here and we'll pull those in. This will be the beginning of our shoulder blade. Again, just to emphasize where the spine sits in. So if we turn on symmetry now, you can start to see the back forming. So the nice furrow down the back where the spine sits, down into the lower back muscles and the shoulder blades. Even the rib cage is starting to form. So we've got a nice rib cage flowing there. I might bring these in a little bit. And there we go. We can see the nice shadow falling down between the rib cage and the muscles on the abdomen. You can widen these a little bit, I think. Maybe a bit here as well, just a little bit. Okay, so it's starting to look almost human. So yeah, I'm becoming happy with how this is looking. I'm just going to bring up our color reference and have remind myself of what she looks like. So she's of Latino origin, so her skin coloring is a little darker and she has wider hips, so just making sure that we still fit that. So yeah, I think she's looking pretty good, still fitting with our concept. We might come back in later and adjust these muscles a little bit more, but for now I think this is starting to come along nicely, so we'll continue to extrude, do the last couple of extrusions for the upper body. So just hitting F4 to bring everything up and turning off everything with the toggle button. And we're going to make a couple of extrusions for the base of the neck. So just one at the top of, for the top of our collarbone, and then one to the base of the neck. And we'll just tweak these in and start adjusting these. Now she's looking to be quite wide across the shoulders here, which is a little bit out of proportion from her hips. So normally on if we're talking idealistic female, the hips are actually wider than the shoulders. So when we add the arms, we might actually bring those in a little bit. And of course we'd have to adjust our proxy model to adhere to that as well. But she's just looking a little bit too much like too wide across the shoulders there, a bit masculine. Of course, maybe she's a swimmer, but swimmers tend to have wider shoulders as well due to the muscle bulk they build up, but she's not. So Selena is an archaeologist. Selena is an archaeologist. So she's not going to have swimmer shoulder. And we'll adjust those later. Just moving to the side. I'm going to pull this back to where it sits on the chest, on the silhouette of our model. It also means that the muscle here from neck to shoulder is wider than it normally would be, but again that's all part of the style, so we'll just tweak a little bit to make things look a little bit more realistic, but for the most part we stick with the concept. Okay, so we're just defining collarbone a little bit here, so we're going to bring this down so it sits in and back. So for the base of the neck, I'm getting close to see this. Bring these in for the neck. Okay. So just pulling these in so that they're at the base of the neck. And put it on a slight angle. So yeah, I think we definitely need an extra edge loop through there. but we'll just tweak these first. Make sure everything is lining up and looking pretty good before we move on. So I'm going to move into perspective mode now. Perspective viewport, and continue to tweak. So just rounding off the base of the neck. Might be good to put the symmetry on, and we'll turn off turbo smooth just by hitting the light bulb so we can see how things are looking. And then of course back into front to make sure that we've got the neck at the right width. To suit our concept. Back into perspective again, and then just continue to tweak the shape. Don't forget to adjust the back of the model. Okay, that looks pretty good. You can see where the collarbone has started and the base of the neck has started to rise up around the shoulder blade and the chest rib cage. And then that is our torso complete. From here, I think we'll move on to creating the arm, so we can attach the arm to the body. It's just once that's on, we can move on to finishing off the breast. It's easier to get the edge flow from the arm into the breast and getting the right folds around the armpit area. But there we go. Starting to look a little bit like our character, which is great. I might, before we finish, we'll tweak these a little bit just to bring them out a little bit. Bring that in a little bit, just to lessen the shadow a little around the belly, just to give her a little bit more she has quite a big belly area, so there we go. There we go. That is our upper body.